Can migration shift the balance of power between nations? What happens when governments transform human mobility into a strategic tool for coercion, leverage, and negotiation? Across the world, states don't just respond to migration, they engineer, control, and manipulate it to advance political goals. Nowhere is this more evident than at the Greek-Turkish border, a key fault line in Europe's migration politics. In early 2020, migration became central to geopolitical maneuvering along the Evros land border, a heavily militarized frontier separating Greece and Turkey. The Kastanies border post became a focal point of intense clashes and diplomatic tensions, as thousands of migrants were funneled towards the border in a crisis that combined domestic, bilateral, and supranational dimensions. To analyze these dynamics, my research applies a three-level game framework, revealing how states strategically use migration across different arenas. First, governments use migration to address internal pressures and to shape political narratives in domestic politics. Second, migration is weaponized as a bargaining tool to gain leverage over neighboring states in bilateral disputes. Third, states use migration to engage or pressure supranational entities like the EU for strategic advantage. As thousands of migrants gathered at the border, hoping to enter Europe, Greek authorities responded by sealing off crossings and reinforcing security. With Turkey actively facilitating movement towards the frontier and Greece determined to hold the line, the scene was set for violent clashes, diplomatic standoffs, and a full-scale border crisis. But this was not just a spontaneous humanitarian emergency. It was a manufactured crisis, strategically instrumentalized by both governments. For Turkey, the crisis was a deliberate move to pressure the EU, demanding the fulfillment of commitments made in the 2016 EU-Turkey deal, including financial aid and visa liberalization. Turkish authorities actively facilitated mass movements of migrants towards the border, creating a highly visible, politically disruptive spectacle. For Greece, the moment was framed as both a national security emergency and an opportunity to reinforce domestic political authority. Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis declared Greece the shield of Europe, rallying EU support and securing 700 million euros in funding, along with an expanded role for Frontex. But behind these strategic maneuvers lay real human costs. Migrants caught in the crossfire of geopolitical bargaining with little regard for their safety or rights. The weaponization of migration is not unique to this crisis. It has been deployed elsewhere as a tool of statecraft. In Belarus, in 2021, migrants were funneled towards Poland, Lithuania, and Latvia in retaliation for EU sanctions. Morocco has repeatedly used irregular migration to put pressure on Spain, particularly over Western Sahara sovereignty. Elsewhere in North Africa, Libya, a key transit country, has turned migration diplomacy into a tool for securing EU financial and logistical support, often at the cost of migrants detained in dire conditions. My research challenges traditional views of migration as a secondary or humanitarian issue. Instead, it demonstrates that migration diplomacy is a strategic instrument of statecraft, shaping everything from domestic governance to international negotiations. By applying a three-level game framework, we can better understand how states use migration to achieve political goals, often at the expense of human lives. Migration diplomacy is reshaping global power dynamics. To address these challenges, we must first understand the strategies behind them. Scan the QR code on the screen to access my full analysis, which is freely available as an open access publication. Explore how migration diplomacy is shaping the world and what it means for the future.